And welcome to Weather and Ag in Focus on this Monday, January 12th. It doesn't feel like it outside, though, with temperatures in the mid 30s across much of the area. There's even a few 40s out around the Jamestown, Bismarck area, and temps approaching 50 out in the western part of the state. Unbelievably nice weather. Unless you are a fan of the snow, then you're not liking this. I'm Chief Meteorologist Dean Wysocki, along with our Ag Director, Bridgette Readel. And Bridgette, okay, are you a fan of this weather? I mean, it's January. We're supposed to be cold, but we've got temperatures, not record warmth, but not far away from it. Fan or not a fan?
Again, we just have a regular bit of a warm-up at this point every year, it feels like. So I'm not terribly surprised. I happen to be parked very close to some sugar beets. And my one concern that I would have there is spoilage for this type of thing, where we're anticipating cold temperatures to keep these from having any um, meltdowns and or decay in the piles, etc. So that's one thing that I would like to see a little bit different. And I don't mind temperatures at freezing as long as we keep falling below at night so we can make better ice for those who want to get some ice fishing in this year.
Right, no doubt, no doubt. And we do have some colder weather that is on the horizon, and finally, it looks like we'll get more consistent cold. And we've been advertising this for about a week or so after the middle of the month, which is coming up here this week. So today, though, we're looking at a beautiful day out there in terms of sunshine and light winds. For this time of the year, you can't beat it. Temperatures in the mid to upper 30s across much of the area with a southwest wind at 5 to 10. Tonight, we're not even going to drop down below freezing. We'll be in the low to mid 30s, about 34. And we could even see a few light sprinkles tonight. And then Tuesday, we'll start off with the early high in the upper 30s, about 38. Then a cold front hits. Our winds turn to the northwest, and we'll see falling temperatures in the afternoon with a colder day on tap for Wednesday with highs only into the teens. And then a clipper system will come our way Thursday. Now, out ahead of it, it's going to warm us up to about 30, and then temperatures crash Thursday night and Friday. With falling temperatures Friday, we'll start in the teens and then fall with about 10 to 20 below wind chills by later in the day. We will see some measurable snow Thursday night into Friday as well. Right now, it looks like about an inch or two, which doesn't sound like a big deal. But when you're factoring in 40-plus mile-an-hour winds on Friday, if you have any travel plans across the area on Friday from the valley eastward, it looks like those are going to be the key areas from the valley eastward. We could have some travel difficulties this coming Friday. So be prepared for that. And then cold air, it's here to stay through the weekend and into next week with probably another clipper system coming our way as we head into Sunday. So for the cold lovers and for the, I know a lot of sledders and cross-country skiers want to see a little fresh powder around here. We're finally going to get some. No big storms on the horizon, but you get these little clipper systems with these 1, 2, 3-inch snowfalls, and you also get 30, 40 mile an hour winds with it. That spells trouble, and looks like we'll have a couple of those coming our way over the next week to 10 days.
Not to be surprised by any of those. So I think everybody just keep an eye out for what's happening and adjust your travel plans accordingly as you might need. Now, one of the things that we will have not only as Dean said, a clipper system coming into next week, very soon we are going to also have another one of our interns join us, sponsored by Cass County Farm Bureau for the Assistant Ag Director during one of our shows. And I believe I will have one next week, Wednesday, with us. So exciting to have those students join us, learning more about what happens behind the scenes in radio, improve their communication skills, and then, of course, be a part of what's happening agronomically in the region. And much appreciated because Cass County Farm Bureau does a fabulous job of sponsoring them and currently representing many of us at the American Farm Bureau Conference in Anaheim. Hopefully they have all had a great couple of days of meetings and will be heading back soon. If you have questions, road reports, and so much more, reach us on the JLA Insurance phone line. There are changes coming up for crop insurance, and you're going to want to check on those. Higher premium subsidies, more coverage options, and I saw a headline this morning in regards to delays. So that may affect that March 16th deadline that's up and coming. Well, if you want to know what's happening with it, call Nate Thorsrud over at JLA Insurance. He is our phone line sponsor. You can reach us at 701-293-9000. but you'll find Nate at JLA Insurance. He's a farmer just like you. Lighthouse Commodities, who makes sure that we have our Facebook, YouTube, and Acres TV live streams going on every day. They're going to be a part of a meeting next week, and I am pulling up those details as we speak right now. This will be held next week on Tuesday, January 20th. This will be out in Bismarck. Lighthouse Commodities will have David Spickler. He's a market analyst, and he'll be sharing insights on grain markets, risk management, and what North Dakota growers should be thinking about as we head into the new crop year. The WASDE report came out today. I'm sure that will be a big part of the discussion that they'll be having out there with that meeting. Again, it's Lighthouse Commodities. And if you would like more details, drop me an email, ag@flagfamily.com. My inbox is powered by Superior Grain Equipment, making sure that you have superior options for grain storage, drying, and handling systems. And if you do drop me a message, ag@flagfamily.com or deanweather@flagfamily.com, I'll connect you with the folks over at Lighthouse Commodities for that meeting. It's being held in conjunction with BW Fusion, and there will be some talking points there that as far as BW Fusion, they want to talk about agronomy, actionable ideas. They want to make sure there's some room for Q&A, and they'll have several speakers coming from BW Fusion like Jason and Jaron Shaley, Josh Messer, and Mark Hecht. So lots of things happening. Again, it's that time of the year for plenty of meetings that are going on. Now, we want to make sure you get qualified to win a chance for a trip to Vegas. That Vegas vacation is coming up soon, and it will be a Valentine's Day in Vegas to see the Wizard of Oz. If you haven't gone to WDAYradionow.com and clicked on the Valentine's Day in Vegas banner, you should. You get to submit your name to win. And then every day during the week, during this hour, 1 to 2 o'clock, we will give away the opportunity to qualify when we call your name. And then you got to be sure you're at Kingpins on February 3rd for the chance to have your name called as the top dog winner who walks away with airfare for two from Fargo to Vegas, 3-night hotel stay, 2 tickets to the Wizard of Oz at the Sphere, and $500 in spending cash, all compliments of Frontier Airlines, Kingpins, and All Sager Meats. Dean, any idea when you want to give away that qualifier? Because it should be fairly exciting today. See if we can get back on track and have a regular round of people catching it and qualifying.
Yeah, let's do that. You want to do that in the last segment? You want to keep people waiting, or we can do it right now?
This is your call.
We'll do it in the last segment. I'll give you a hint. We won't name the name yet, but our qualifier is from Grafton. So if you know anybody from Grafton, you're going to want to tell them, hey, you better be listening in here about 1:45 when we announce the name of our qualifier, which will be from Grafton.
And you'll only have 11 minutes to call us back. So you got to be speedy quick, right on top of things. Well, I think our guest has already connected, so they'll be joining us very soon. And we're going to be visiting with Eric Mische. For those of you on the live stream, you can see the title of his book that he sent me. Go effing do something is essentially the title of his book. But also, Eric works for a nonprofit in Minnesota. It is striving to improve suicide awareness for not only those of us in agriculture, but also in construction and a host of other industries as well. We'll have a great talk with Eric coming up here after the American Ag Network's livestock market update. And then we're going to want to talk to him about his book. There's some references to North Dakota, and let's find out why. So stay tuned, and we'll visit with Eric Mische, our guest, after this. All of you just heard that reminder that on Fridays, Greg Hansen with Hansen Agro Commodities joins us for Market Uncovered, which is going to be particularly of interest this Friday at 1:20 because of the WASDE report that was released today and some other market indicating factors. So if you have questions in particular and you would like to make sure that I get an opportunity to ask them of Greg, please send them to me. Again, ag@flagfamily.com. That inbox is sponsored by Superior Grain Equipment, or you can give a call on the JLA Insurance phone line on Friday at 701-293-9000. For those of you who had the opportunity to hear Chris Sherman last week at Devil's Lake for the Lake Region Roundup, he's with Tech Support Farm. Chris talked about cybersecurity and had lots of good questions from those of you who attended. If you have more, don't forget to go check him out. That's Tech Support Farm. You can find him at techsupport.farm, and then also do the fence check assessment while you're there. Are you protected as well as you need to be? Guests today are going to talk about SAVE. SAVE is a nonprofit organization out of Minnesota that is specializing in helping those prevent suicide in a variety of industries. And we're joined by their director, Eric Mische, but then also on the phone by one of the, I believe, board of directors, Brent Boydston. So, Eric, I'm going to ask you first to give us a little overview of SAVE and what we should know.
Well, perfect. Well, thanks for having me on. And unlike the Twitter call, this one here I'm a little more comfortable with. I know how to use this one. So, so SAVE is a Minnesota-based national suicide prevention nonprofit that was founded about 36 years ago by a number of family members who had lost loved ones to suicide. And 36 years ago, folks rarely talked about suicide. And if they did, they talked about it in very hushed tones. There was a lot of stigma attached to suicide. And one of the things that these families wanted to do was to create an organization that would take the issue of suicide out of the darkness and shed light on it, and to do what they could to eliminate the stigma attached to it. Because at the end of the day, one of the most important parts of suicide prevention is being willing to talk about it, to share one's own journey with it, and to get rid of the stigma that too often is associated with it. So today we operate under what we call our four pillars: education and training, advocacy, lethal means safety, and support for suicide loss survivors. And all of our programs and our focus are really community-based, grassroots-based, all of which are designed, again, to make sure we talk about suicide, eliminate the stigma of it, and teach people how to have conversations with others about suicide.
Now, I actually got introduced to Eric through Brent. And when Eric referenced Twitter, yeah, we had a Twitter live chat on Friday. And so a new trick was taught. So Eric is not catching on to how we use those. But Brent, can you explain how you're a part of SAVE and how that's been impactful for you and your job?
Sure. And Bridgette, I just want to say thank you for having us on today to talk about this important issue. So my relationship with Eric goes back to when I was a very, very young staffer in Capitol Hill. I came off the farm in Kansas, had no idea what I wanted to do, ended up in Capitol Hill. I joke around that Eric had pity on me, took me under his wing, learned a lot from Eric, and then I've stayed involved in agricultural policy through the Farm Bureau world, through the corporate world, and Eric reached out to me about a year ago and said, hey, agriculture is underrepresented in this discussion. Would you be willing to serve on the board? And I said, absolutely, because unfortunately, it seems like every small town knows someone that has committed suicide. Anything that we can do to stop one of those, I'm happy to do, and happy to lend my support in any which way I can.
We talk so much about agriculture and certainly want to. I mean, first of all, this is Weather and Ag in Focus, but second of all of us have a background in ag that makes this near and dear to our hearts. We know what's happening in the markets right now, as well as just the stress level and the anxiety that's pushing farmers and their families, as well as those in rural communities, more and more each day. But I know we're not the only industry, and Eric always has very surprising facts for me about some of the other places where he sees these increases as well, and construction for one. But could you outline some of the others for us, if you would, Eric? I know veterinarians, extremely high burnout rate as well.
Yeah. So veterinarians, construction industry has one of the highest rates of suicide of any profession anywhere in the world. Dentists, doctors, veterans, obviously, law enforcement, first responders, attorneys. If you think about each of these types of professions, there's a lot of similarities in them. And let's talk a little bit about similarities between construction and the agricultural community, because that's where you see a lot of kind of synergy between the complex issues that lead to these type of high suicide rates. Construction workers, it's a male-dominated industry, particularly white males, who are the highest demographic for suicide are white males. A lot of veterans work in the construction industry. Veterans have one of the highest rates of suicide in the country. A lot of access to firearms. Firearms happen to be the leading method upon which people die by suicide. Construction workers, a lot of injuries. There's a lot of isolation as they work from job to job, economic uncertainty, and there is a lot of substance abuse, often tied to the self medication because of injury. So, all in all, we look at these different types of industries and we look at what are the factors that contribute to those rates of suicide. And again, if in agriculture, whether you're a farmer, you're in the agribusiness industry, there's a lot of stress, a lot of strain. You just talked about the markets, the uncertainty of the economics of things, access to healthcare. And in rural communities, the stigma of mental illness and suicide is still inordinately high. So it should, if you think about it and you look at those parallels, they actually aren't that shocking when you spend some time and take a look at it, because there's a lot of similarities between the risk factors between construction industry, agricultural community, and even folks that are first responders or veterans.
And Eric, with you have mentioned rural community. Is that part of the problem where, our ag community, they're a little more isolated and they don't have as many people to talk to? Is that one of the problems?
That is absolutely one of the problems. And if you think about access to healthcare, right? You think about geography, you think about the lack of access to broadband, to be able to get telemedicine. Those are all contributing factors. In rural communities, oftentimes you don't have access to mental health professionals in the same way that you might have in an urban center, urban environment. So all of those are factors. And the other piece of that is, again, I'll come back to the issue of stigma. I can't tell you how many people I've spoken to, whether they're farmers or not, that live in rural communities, that are very sensitive to the idea that if they find themselves struggling, with a mental health issue, they need somebody to talk to, they're not likely to drive down to the neighborhood clinic or hospital and park there for concern and fear that somebody may actually see them parked there and wondering, what are they doing there? Was there something going wrong with them? So that stigma is still something that we need to really be mindful of.
One of the groups that we talked about was veterinarians. And I think that in some respect, it's surprising to those who might be listening. But I want to specifically hone in on large animal veterinarians. You're talking about folks that often are in a single practice, so they're by themselves, which means they don't get days off unless they can find somebody to cover for them. And those days can be incredibly long. You have to try to diagnose not just a human, but you have to now diagnose a dog, a cat, a cow, a goat, a horse. And when you think about people's livelihood, if you're a 50 cow dairy in Wisconsin and you call your large animal vet to come on out, and you have a prolapsed cow, and unfortunately you lose the cow dies, that veterinarian carries that with them. It's
Yeah.
not just about farming your farm or taking care of your herd. When you are a banker, a vet, an agronomist, you take care of everybody's farm, not just one. And that can weigh very, very heavily on those individuals. Lots of questions to come, gentlemen. When we return from our news, I do want to ask Brent, as a professional in ag, as a board member, how are some of the ways that he sees we can make an impact on our communities and in our agribusinesses? And then we have lots more questions and situations we want to talk about. So we'll return after that. And our guests today are with SAVE, the nonprofit organization out of out of Minnesota. We are working to help prevent suicide in a variety of industries and for all people. And we are visiting with their executive director, Eric Mische, but also one of their board members, Brent Boydson. Brent, how did you get involved as a board member? What are some of the responsibilities you have?
So thank you. Our biggest responsibilities are just making sure Eric stays in line. No,
Good luck with that.
No, aside from the normal responsibilities that a board has of oversight of the organization, strategic planning, the fiduciary responsibilities, it's also our job to help get the word out about what SAVE is and what SAVE is doing. And that's where, using my connections in the agricultural world, I've been able to reach out to a lot of input supply companies to make them, one, aware that SAVE exists, and two, some of the different ways that they can get involved in this issue, whether it's anything from being a sponsor to getting employee training so that employees can recognize the sign of someone who's having some issues and some difficulties, and making them aware what options exist for help. And really, the third one that I'll say is going back to what Eric said earlier, removing the stigma from the issue. Unfortunately, when we get into small towns, this is a very stigmatized issue, and it's going to stay that way until we talk about it openly, which is why I'm willing to do this so that we can draw attention to this important issue. And one last thing that I did want to say is when we talk about, farmer mental health and farmer suicide, absolutely farmer mental health is an incredibly important component of it, but not all suicides are mental health related. Sometimes it can be, a quick onset, reviewing the books at the end of the year, a quick depression or sense of hopelessness, something comes in. So they go hand in hand, but sometimes they are different, and getting that training out to, our elevators, our veterinarians, our agronomists that you were talking about earlier, seed salesmen, getting that training out to them so that they know what to look for, I think is critically important.
Yeah, Brent, you make a great point about those things, and I really think that it's important to note that over the years, I think we've had less stigma with it, because we've also recognized that having anxiety and depression doesn't always lead to suicide. Eric, what were you going to share?
Yeah, I was just going to kind of piggyback on Brent's point. That's a really important point. Is a lot of folks, I think, assume that people who are dealing with suicidal ideation or die by suicide or attempt to suicide are all struggling with a mental illness or depression or something like that. And to be sure, there is definitely a connection there, but suicide is a really complex issue. We talk a lot about what's called the social determinants of health when it comes to suicide and mental health. And social determinants of health, are things like access to health care, having economic, that you're not struggling financially, you're in a good place economically, that you've got housing, you've got food, you've got shelter. So social determinants of health have a big role to play in this as well. And then there is also simply the issue of the impulsivity of suicide, which is one of the things that we talk a lot about at SAVE, particularly when we talk about trying to interrupt that suicidal impulsivity. And this would be a good place for me to remind folks, and Bridgette, you brought up some other resources on our Twitter call, but there is a free resource that is out there to everybody, whether you're in agriculture or you're a Main Street business person, or just mom or dad or a young person. It's called 988. It's free. You can call it, you can text it, you can chat it. It's available 24 hours a day. It's confidential. And there's people on the other end of that conversation who are trained to talk with you about struggles that you may be having, or may be able to provide you resources to help someone else who may be struggling.
In a couple of areas, we've seen some great concern. We talked about veterinarians. We have talked about so many, construction workers, so many other places. One that surprised me that y'all mentioned were college athletes after they have finished their college careers. There is a high suicide rate there. When milk prices hit their record lows within the last 2 years, milk checks were sent out that had the suicide hotline number on them because the prices were so bad. They were worried about their dairy producers. So when we talk about all of these groups being affected, who's left? Who hasn't had this complex issue hit their industry?
There is nobody who hasn't had this complex issue hit their industry, and that's the one thing that we need to be mindful of, is that when we talk about suicide, it isn't just isolated to a particular group or demographic. To be fair, all of us, at one time or another, have been connected either directly or indirectly with the issue of suicide. I will tell you that there's a lot of data out there that is showing sharp increases in certain demographics. We are seeing, historically, women have attempted suicide more than men, but men die by suicide in greater numbers. We are starting to see a sharp uptick in women dying by suicide. Young people, particularly preteen youth, we are starting to see some startling numbers and statistics showing that preteen youth are among the highest demographic at risk of suicidal ideation and suicide. SAVE does a lot of work in the social media space, trying to make social media and AI safer for kids, because in the last 20 years, we have seen significant increases in dangers to young people on social media and AI, ranging from sextortion, the purchase of illegal drugs, to suicidal ideation and suicide and choking games. So all of these issues are really complex and they're really difficult. And so all of us need to be in a position to talk about it, because every single one of us is impacted in some way, shape, or form by suicide.
So at the Lake Region Roundup last week, I was on a panel with 3 others where we talked about the after effects as well. We talked about substance abuse, how to talk to your to your banker, where to get help if you're concerned financially, and what happens to those who survive after a suicide. And I had a farmer come up to me after the fact, and he said, "Look, I have bad days, and I know you say I should talk to somebody, but what do I tell them? Because I don't want to pile on. They're probably having the same kind of bad days I am. I don't want to burden my wife, because for 6 months out of the year, she's a single parent taking care of the kids in the house while I farm. I'm afraid to tell my neighbors that I have a concern, because I'm afraid that they're going to come after me and my landlords to try to outbid me and cash rent and take land away from me. Who do I turn to if I only need to really vent for 20 minutes and then I'm good for 2 months? How do I do that?"
I mean, that, again, I will share with you 988. Again, if you need to talk to somebody and you don't want to talk to your spouse, you don't want to talk to your pastor, you don't want to talk to your neighbor, your friend, or your family, call it, text it, chat it, 988. It's free and it's confidential. Nobody's going to know that you called. And it may be something that all you need is somebody to talk to. A lot of times, all any of us really need is somebody to talk to somebody to vent, right? That's an important part of being human. It's an important part of kind of releasing, pent up emotions and challenges and struggles. And the other part that's important is that if those feelings and if those emotions and those thoughts are there more often than not, it's also a signal that you need to get help. You need to go get help, and you need to talk to people that you love, who love you, who care about you, because they would want you to do that. Your spouse would rather you come and talk to him or her and say, "I am struggling," than to find out later that you were and that you never asked for the help, and God forbid something bad happened. So I think all of us have to recognize that part of what we have to be willing to do is ask for help. That is something every human is entitled to, every human has the opportunity to simply say, I'm struggling, I need help. And if you don't feel like you can talk to somebody who's close to you, then by all means, please call, text, or chat 988.
Gentlemen, before we wrap up for the day, I have one more question for Brent. And Brent, I sometimes hear farmers say, because there's such high competition amongst them, it's hard to talk to each other, to your neighbor, because you're worried about what that might look like or how that might hurt you in the end. When you see what's happening in ag today, do you think we've lost some of the camaraderie, or do we just look for it, maybe not the exact next door neighbor, we look for that camaraderie and help in a different way?
I wouldn't say that we've necessarily lost the camaraderie, because you do see when farms have challenges, you do see that community come together to help them. Unfortunately, though, there is that business component to it as well, where, hey, if I can take this piece of information and use it to bid on that quarter, unfortunately, we do know that that does happen. You know, if someone is having, you know, challenges and they are scared that that camaraderie is gone, or they're scared that that's going to that someone that they talk to is going to go and use that information to bid against them. You know, that's why these confidential resources do exist, and you can call and you can talk to someone that, you know, knows these issues well and doesn't have an interest in having something bad happen to you per se. So I get it. You know, coming from a small town with, you know, I say it's a town. It's really more of a group of houses that live together with a zip code. Great place, but I myself, there would be things that I would be uncomfortable saying in some settings, but I know that there's resources out there that exist if I need to talk. And it's making folks, hey, if you are uncomfortable talking to somebody close, if you don't feel like you have that sense of camaraderie, there's no harm in picking up the phone.
Absolutely true. And one of those phone numbers, as Eric mentioned, is 988, which is the National Suicide Hotline. Also, there is the Agri-Stress Helpline that's answered 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. And it is answered by people who understand agriculture, who can respond to your situation, not by saying, you're stressed out, take a few days off during harvest, because we know that doesn't work, but they'll respond appropriately. And if you need that number, it is 833-897-2474, or you can always email me, ag@flagfamily.com, for it to be sent to you. Eric and Brent, thank you for joining us today.
Hey, Bridgette,
Eric, where can folks find SAVE?
Bridgette,
Yes.
before we go, we've got Tom on line 2. He's got a question for our guests. So, Tom, go ahead.
Great.
Yeah, just real quick, is 988 connected to Farm Rescue?
No.
No?
No.
Oh.
Nope. Eric, do you want to answer that and let folks know where to find him?
Well, first of all, learn more about SAVE. Go to our website, save.org, that you can find all sorts of information about our work. 988 is a national number, national network. As far as its connection to Farm Rescue, I wouldn't be able to speak to that one way or the other. But at the end of the day, 988 is a resource for anybody, whether you're in agriculture or not in agriculture.
Yep.
Yeah, there's not a direct affiliation between 988 and Farm Rescue. However, Farm Rescue and Family Farm Wellness Alliance do promote it as well as a tool for
Yes.
farmers needing help.
Yep, absolutely. Thanks, Tom.
Great question.
All right. Well, thanks, guys, for joining us. We appreciate it. And coming up next, well, actually, let's give the name of our qualifier here before we go to break, because we're running a little bit behind. So today's qualifier is, and let me see this, Jackie Thompson of Grafton. Jackie, you've got 11 minutes to call, 701-293-9000. Again, that's Jackie Thompson of Grafton. You got 11 minutes to call. When we come back, we'll do another recap of the weather, and Bridgette will hit on a couple of ag topics if we have time. Don't go anywhere. We'll be right back. And welcome back to Weather and Ag in Focus. And we have Jackie on the line. Jackie, congratulations for qualifying for our wonderful Valentine's Day trip out to Vegas. And you get to see, if you're a winner, you get to see the Wizard of Oz out at the Sphere. So let everybody know how easy it was to qualify for this.
It was really easy. All I did went online last week and just signed up my name, at phone number, email, and I just listened at 1 o'clock and 4 o'clock, and my name was drawn.
Good deal. Good deal. Now, did anybody have to tell you, or you were already listening?
I was already listening to the Jay Thomas Show.
All right, gotcha. All right. Well, so have you ever been out to Vegas before, Jackie, or seen the Wizard?
We went a few years ago at Christmas time with my family, but I'm dying to go see the Wizard of Oz. It'd be so much fun to win.
Awesome.
Yeah.
All right. Well, Jackie, best of luck to you. Thanks for listening, and we'll see you out at Kingpins for the qualifying party.
Thank you.
All righty. See, so it's that easy. All you have to do is go onto our website, WDAYradionow.com, scroll down to the Valentine's Day giveaway icon, click on that, and then register, and then listen to win. It's that simple. So listen to qualify, and then hopefully you'll be one of the lucky winners. Now, in terms of luck, boy, I'll tell you, lady luck is on our side when it comes to weather, because it is a beautiful day out there today for this time of the year. Today and tomorrow, there will be some record highs set across the state. Don't think we'll quite get there here in the FM area, but areas out to our west do stand a chance for seeing some record warmth today or tomorrow before colder weather settles in. We'll top out in the mid to upper 30s across the area today with a light southwest wind, about 5 to 10. Clouds will thicken up as we head towards sunset, and then we'll be partly to mostly cloudy overnight tonight. Maybe a sprinkle or two as temperatures remain above freezing, only the mid-30s for lows, and then we'll briefly get up into the upper 30s to near 40 tomorrow morning, and then temperatures fall in the afternoon as a cold front comes through. Winds pick up out of the northwest. Might see a sprinkle or a flurry with that cold front tomorrow, but again, not going to add up to anything. And then much colder on Wednesday. Highs only in the teens. And then Thursday, a clipper system will come our way, turning our winds back to the west-southwest, warming us up to 30. But then, as we head into Thursday night and Friday, much colder, windy weather. We're talking a lot of wind with this on Friday. Northwest winds gusting at or over 40, along with snow. Now, we're not looking for a lot of snow, about an inch to 2, but you factor in 40-plus mile-an-hour winds, and travel could be difficult from the valley eastward on Friday. Going west of the valley, still going to be windy, but not much snow. So from the valley eastward, we could have some travel difficulties with blowing snow on Friday. And then a cold weekend with another clipper possible Sunday into Monday, and then another clipper system later next week. So we're on that clipper train where they don't have a lot of moisture or a lot of snow with it, but they all add up. And over the next 10 days, we're getting some pretty strong indications. We could have anywhere between about 4 to 8 inches of additional snow in our area. And again, that's over a 10-day span, not all at once. So a little bit here, a little bit there. It all adds up. And when you get the wind with it, Bridgette, like I said, we could have a couple days of pretty difficult travel over the next week to 10 days.
Well, anything that's happening with the wind and travel should not impede people from being able to qualify and then become a winning qualifier by calling in during our show for the Wizard of Oz in Las Vegas over Valentine's Day. I hope we keep the streak up and have folks win all week long. We also want to make sure to say thank you to Progressive Ag, the risk management specialist. They bring all of our weather reports to us during Weather and Ag in Focus every day.
All right. Well, for Bridgette and myself, I want to thank everybody for joining us this afternoon. Don't go anywhere. The Jay Thomas Show is coming up next.